Good afternoon, everyone. I am John Olajide, founder and CEO of Access and the 2020 chair of the Dallas Regional Chamber. I want to welcome everyone to the Dallas Regional Chamber's year-end conversation with Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson. Mayor Johnson, we are so glad to have you with us today. We know you've got a full plate, so thank you for joining us. This is always a great event. It's our chance to hear directly from the Mayor of Dallas. Um, I'm a I am by nature a great believer in the benefits of collaboration, and I know that our community is strongest when City Hall and the business community are in regular conversation. So it's really special that we have Mayor Johnson joining us today. Thank you. First, I'd like to recognize our sponsors who made today's event possible. Our presenting sponsor for today is Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas. Thank you. Our gold sponsors are Atmos Energy and Lockheed Martin. Thank you for your sponsorship. Our silver sponsors are Access, DFW Airport, Encore, Southwest Airlines, and Toyota North America. And of course, thank you to everyone else, all our virtual corporate table sponsors. Thank you for your sponsorship. On behalf of the Dallas Regional Chamber, thank you for your commitment to our mission and your continued contribution to our region. We're also proud to host today a number of our local elected officials that have joined us. Thank you all for all your service to our region and for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Thank you. You know, it's been a true honor to serve as the DRC board chairperson for the past 11 months. I am proud of the work that we've accomplished, especially during these really unprecedented times. A primary focus of the DRC is to attract and grow businesses, you all know that, while working to create an equitable environment in all areas, really, and especially healthcare, education, and workforce development for our region. When we started this year, one of my 4 key priorities was to make real and impactful change in diversity, equity, and inclusion. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted so many inequities in our communities of color, especially, that have been the most vulnerable and most impacted by the virus. And of course, the killing of George Floyd sparked passionate discussions nationwide about how business can lean in and be a force for good and make our community stronger by being more inclusive. I couldn't be more proud of the way our business leaders in this region have stepped up and are leading in this area. And one of the DRC's accomplishments that I am most proud of, really, is that over the past year, the DRC board moved quickly to create a diversity, equity, and inclusion council, just board level, that can focus on DE&I issues all day, every day. The DE&I council will focus first on 4 areas. So the first one is just diversity in leadership and just strengthening workplace culture overall. Secondly is work that we've done at the DRC for so many years, education and workforce. And then thirdly, community investment in underserved areas, areas where we have opportunities to do a much better job. And then fourthly, policing and criminal justice issues. And I'm sure you agree with that, given all the issues that have been highlighted this year. The DRC hired 2 permanent senior vice president staff roles on diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure they have a daily focus on these matters and contribute as members of the senior team and just helping focus on D&I issues every day. You agree with me, no doubt, that this year has been like no other year. It's certainly one for the record books and one that we will not forget. But it's important to share with you that I am very proud of the work that this organization has done. And I've described the DRC as a treasure for this community everywhere I go. I'm proud of all the ways we've grown and served our community this year. And I talk to business leaders frequently all over the country, and I know that our region is leading in this area and the work that our business leaders have done. We've got special business leaders in this community. The work that they've done is a model for the rest of the nation. I just want to share that I am so very proud of that. So thank you all for all your leadership. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Shara McClure. She's the Vice President for Healthcare Delivery at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas, today's presenting sponsor. Over to you, Shara.
All right, thank you, John. Good afternoon, and thank you for being with us today. I'm Shara McClure, Divisional Senior Vice President of Healthcare Delivery at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas. It's our distinct pleasure to be the presenting sponsor for this year-end conversation with Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, hosted by the Dallas Regional Chamber. It's a privilege to partner with the DRC on these efforts and be part of special events like this. Let's talk about the format for today. Following the mayor's reflections on his past year in office and his vision for Dallas's future, we'll turn to the audience for questions. Please use the chat function at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions during the panel discussion. We'll wrap up with Q&A and be finished by 1:50. We are so thrilled to hear from Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson today. We're extremely fortunate to have Mayor Johnson in office. He's someone who understands the importance of business and creating jobs. He's always advocating for Dallas, in Austin, and around the country. Mayor, thank you for your years of public service and willingness to lead our city. Simply put, Mayor Johnson knows Dallas. In fact, he and Blue Cross share a common heritage. Blue Cross and Blue Shield got its start in downtown Dallas more than 90 years ago at Baylor Hospital. Justin Ford Kimball learned that Dallas school teachers were having trouble paying their medical bills after the stock market crashed in 1929. So he created a plan. For just 50 cents a month, teachers would be covered for 21 days in the hospital. This type of care eventually led to the idea of health insurance, and that became the movement from which Blue Cross was founded. In the same way, Mayor Johnson got his start in Dallas with the support of teachers. And like Blue Cross, the mayor's leadership and commitment to community has stretched far beyond the Metroplex. Serving as the 60th mayor of the city of Dallas, Eric Johnson was elected in June 2019. Raised in West Dallas and Oak Cliff, he attended Dallas Independent School District before earning a scholarship to Green Hills School through the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Dallas. Mayor Johnson has been a practicing lawyer in Dallas for more than 15 years. He's a former member of the Texas House of Representatives, where he represented Dallas from 2010 to 2019. During his tenure in the Texas House of Representatives, Mayor Johnson served on 20 prominent legislative committees and is the chairman of the Dallas Area Legislative Delegation. Mayor Johnson earned his undergraduate degree with honors from Harvard University before earning a graduate degree from Princeton University, and then a law degree from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. Mayor Johnson and his wife, Nikki, have two sons, William and George. Moderating the discussion with Mayor Johnson is Dallas Regional Chamber President and CEO Dale Petrosky, who has led the DRC since 2014. Mr. Petrosky's career also includes service as an assistant White House press secretary to President Ronald Reagan, senior vice president for mission programs at National Geographic, and president of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York. Both Dale and Mayor Johnson have faced tremendous obstacles in 2020, and I know they'll have a wealth of knowledge to share with us today. Mayor Johnson, we're honored to host you today. Thank you for joining us. Dale, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, Shara, thank you so much. I love the story about the early days of Blue Cross helping Dallas teachers. What a great historical tidbit for us all to know and to share. So thank you for that. We appreciate all you do in this community and for all Blue Cross Blue Shield does for supporting the DRC so we can do what we do. Can't thank you enough. Mayor, before we get started, I'd like a personal point of privilege to congratulate our board chair, our joint friend, John Olajide, for being named Healthcare Executive of the Year by DCEO Magazine this week. Just a great honor for him. So proud of you, John. Wonderful you're being honored for your work in healthcare on top of all you've done for us this year. I don't know how you have all the time to do all that you do. And so now speaking about not knowing where time, not having enough time to do all that is going on, I'm going to introduce you to Mayor Johnson. Mayor, thanks so much for joining us today for this important discussion with the business community. And if you don't mind, we'll get right into it.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Let's talk about the state of affairs with COVID-19, matter of focus for you certainly, and for levels of government at all levels. Tell us a little bit about, give us just a sense of what your world is like in trying to manage the crisis.
Well, before I'm going to jump right in, but I do want to say thank you, Dale. Thanks for putting this together and moderating today. And John Olajide, thank you so much for your leadership this past year as chair of the chamber. I've enjoyed getting to know you tremendously. And, I want to make sure everyone knows just how important this relationship really is. You said it right, John. The relationship between City Hall and the chamber is one that is very important to our city. And we both recognize that. Our regular phone calls are a testament to that. And I just want to say how much I appreciate your leadership and look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. But with respect to the coronavirus situation facing our city, I want to put it in context, Dale. I want to make sure people understand something. I heard a lot, less so lately, but I used to hear a lot about the comparisons of what we're going through to previous health issues, public health concerns in our city. And the reality is, Dale, is that there really is no comparison out there, short of possibly the Spanish flu in 1918. This is a really unprecedented public health challenge that we're facing. Put it in perspective, that the comparison I heard early on, which is, like I said, I don't hear much now, was, well, isn't this kind of like, the Ebola situation? Shouldn't we be approaching this the way we approached the Ebola situation? And the answer to that is the only thing this virus and Ebola have in common is the letter O, really, because the way this virus spreads and the numbers of people who are affected by it don't compare. I think Ebola ended up costing us one life. We had a total of, I believe, 3 cases total of Ebola. We are already approaching 130,000 cases in Dallas County. We have already crossed the threshold of 1,200 deaths from coronavirus. So we're talking about something that spreads very differently and it is posing a very different type of challenge. We're also talking about a more protracted challenge. The Ebola virus, given that it affected 3 people, was able to be contained within weeks. We are coming close to a year now of having to deal with this in our city. And so thinking back to the early days of the virus, we've had to do a lot at the city, given the fact that we are not the primary health care provider or the primary health authority for our residents. It's actually Dallas County. We've had to really think about the most efficient and effective ways to use what resources we do have at the city to help. And I think they fall roughly into 3 buckets. The first thing I've tried to do with the role that I have as mayor is to just assure people that we will get through this, to not lose hope and not to let fear dictate their every move. We want people to know that there is an end in sight. We want people to know there are things that we can do. We're not powerless. And so that's why you've heard me talk so much about the social distancing and the wearing the masks and maintaining good hygiene and those types of things, because I want people to know that there are things that they can do. The other thing we've tried to do is to inform people. That's another role that we've really stepped up on, and early on in the pandemic, wanted to be sure that people had the information they needed so they could be informed about how the virus works and what we were doing to try to keep them safe. So the earliest move that we made was to report out testing data. That was not being reported publicly. We started reporting that out every day. We ordered every lab in the city to start reporting out that information. We then started requiring reporting on hospitalizations, and we sent out those reports daily. And I know a lot of people really appreciate that. And we sent out an email every day. Many of you on this Zoom call probably get it. That gives a very comprehensive summary of where we are with respect to the virus. every day. And so we think that's critical. We think that people make better decisions when they have more information, and they will trust the folks who are trying to help them get through this if they feel like we're not hiding anything from them. And that was very important to me. And that wasn't always easy to do. There were times when people thought the information was maybe more harmful than good, or it was too much information. And my position was always that people will make good decisions with that information. It's better for them to know than not to know. And then the last thing I'd say is I've tried to model the behavior that we want to see people participate in. We want them to do. And primarily that has run the range from always wearing a mask. I mean, I'm by myself today, so I'm not wearing one, but I wear masks whenever I'm out in public. I wear masks when I'm conducting our meetings at City Hall so people can see that. I changed my official photograph at City Hall to me wearing a mask. I've taken all of our advisories very seriously. I spent Thanksgiving at home with my family, my nuclear family only. We didn't travel. We did all the things we're telling people to do because I want them to know that, what I'm telling other folks that I think they need to do. We didn't participate in Halloween trick-or-treating. We're trying to demonstrate the behavior, trying to model the behavior that we want people to follow because we know it's the best way to keep folks safe. Now, on the policy side, and I'll wrap it up here, but there's a whole year's worth of work that we've been doing. So it's kind of a lot. It's a big question. But we had coronavirus relief funds that we wanted to put out as quickly as possible in the ways we thought would be most helpful. And that took the form of a small business relief fund, $5 million to help small businesses, and then about $14 million to help folks who were struggling to make rental or mortgage payments. So we got that money into a program for people to be able to access those funds. I immediately appointed a couple of committees to deal with COVID on the city council to be laser focused on the issue and figure out what we need to be doing as a city. And that's helped us get mobile testing sites throughout the city and to partner with folks on that to make sure we're monitoring our relationship with the county and that they're doing the things they need to be doing, trying to stay on them about making sure we have adequate contact tracing and those types of things. I turned to the private sector and I was grateful that we had Ambassador Richard Fisher, Fred Propal, John Lajde, folks at the chamber all step up to help us with our Dallas Forward program to get PPE into the hands of small businesses that needed it, and also to give them much needed assistance on the business side, advisory and consulting services to help them get through this period. So, we've done a lot of things to try to do what we can to leverage the resources we have at the city. But what people should know is that the county is really where the funds are and where the expertise is with respect to public health. And that's who we look to for our guidance on these issues.
Mayor, we appreciate all you've done. I particularly appreciate your daily email because it gives me every day, sort of what's going on here. And I must say, you're probably one of the only mayors in the country who actually didn't go somewhere for Thanksgiving and actually did what you said you were going to do.
It appears that way.
All right, let's talk about crime. Crime was a hot topic during last year's campaign. Numbers were rising. Police department was stretched thin on staffing. Where are we today on crime numbers compared to recent years? And where are we on the staffing of the police department?
Another big question, actually, but a very important question. Short answer is we're not where I want us to be. But now let me give you some facts and fill in some of these blanks for you. You referenced the campaign, and it seems like forever ago. But what I remember is during the campaign, the question was whether or not I wanted to label what we had experienced after 1 month of an increase in homicides a crisis, and ended up being kind of a media obsession to get me to would he call it a crisis or not. And my position then was a month is not a sufficient amount of data to label something a crisis. You need to see where the trends are, and you need to see if it actually has any staying power. You need to reserve your judgment a little bit before you start throwing around terms like crisis and making people worried for no reason potentially. Well, I think the jury's back in now. The jury was out for a while, but the jury's back in. And we do have a very serious public safety challenge on our hands in Dallas. And the numbers have been trending the wrong way for a couple of years now. So if we look back to 2019, our homicides in 2019 were the highest we've had in 12 years. Aggravated assaults were up significantly. Domestic violence was up. All these things were moving in the wrong direction in 2019. I asked for a crime plan from our police chief to outline for us as policymakers at the council level, but also for the general public to know, what are we going to do to get these numbers moving in the right direction? And I will also remind folks that in 2019, we were the outlier, really, of major cities in the country. There were, I think, us and maybe Philadelphia were the only two major cities in the U.S. where crime was going up, violent crime was going up. And all the other major cities in the United States, crime was falling and falling sharply in 2019. So that's how it got on my radar screen and really made me concerned. We were moving in the wrong direction. Asked for a violent crime plan, and we got a violent crime plan from the police chief that was not particularly ambitious, wasn't particularly detailed, wasn't particularly new, really, in fact, but it was a plan. And so I gave the chief and the department the leeway to work their plan, and let's see where things headed. Well, that brings us to 2020. And you ask, where are we now? The answer is we've obliterated the 12-year record high that we had last year, this year. We've already obliterated that record. We are over, at this point, the total number of homicides we had for 2019 with a month left to go in the year. Aggravated assaults are up, domestic violence is up, and this is all up over last year. So up over where it was last year. and it's a real concern of mine. And it's something that I really wanted the Dallas City Council to take very seriously during our last budget process. It was priority number one, I said, that we get this moving in the right direction, and that meant addressing the police department's hiring issues. And I think, Dale, you're well aware of sort of the how that unfolded. But in a nutshell, let's say this. The police department was shortchanged in the last budget. And no matter what anybody may say about, the budget went up, for the overall, that's a true statement. But you have to unpack that just a little bit. The police budget went up overall because we had contractual obligations in terms of pay that we had to fulfill, and that caused it to go up. But here's what we did as a council. When I say we, I mean a majority of the council voted to do this. I voted against this budget for this reason. It cut the police overtime budget by 25% in the middle of this very crime uptick that I'm describing to you. I thought that was irresponsible and completely unnecessary. To fund some of the things that folks wanted to do in that budget that were non-law enforcement related, there were other places we could have cut, including the salaries of folks who work at City Hall, and that was summarily rejected. Another thing it did not pay for new squad cars that was requested by the police department. For those of you who are wondering, well, why is that important? The answer is because a patrol officer, like many of us, have an office that they need to work in every single day to do their job. And you know what that office is? It's their patrol car. And our patrol cars are in need of replacement. And some of them are not as safe to operate as they should be. And that was not funded in this current budget. We also did not honor the obligation that we incurred in the previous budget to actually mark our police officers' salaries to the local market to make sure that we are competitive and that our pay matches what our surrounding suburbs were paying. The city manager just didn't feel like there was going to be the will on the council to honor that obligation. So he didn't propose that we fulfill it. And the council was more than happy to take him up on that offer. And we did not do it. And that's unfortunate because at this point, the Dallas Police Department stands at about 3,000 officers, where we were at about 3,500 officers just as late as 2015. And we are budgeted to actually lose on net 50 officers this year. So we are going down in manpower. Despite what anyone tells you about the police budget, we will have fewer officers in the Dallas Police Department by the end of this year at this rate than we had when we started. And that is because we will lose more to retirement or other forms of attrition than we will in hiring. So these are all things that are very, very concerning in the middle of a violent crime uptick. That's at this point, Dale, it looks like we may fall somewhere around the 2004 homicide numbers. And just so you know what those numbers earned us, when we hit those numbers in 2004, the next year we earned the distinction of being the FBI's most dangerous large city in America, because it's done on a per capita basis. We only have 1.4 million people in Dallas. We should not have murders that are anywhere in the ballpark of Los Angeles. And we're in the ballpark of Los Angeles, which is a city of 4 million people. And that's a problem. And it's something that the Dallas City Council hopefully is coming around to, but up to now has shown some resistance to actually putting their votes and the money where their mouths are now.
Yeah. Mayor, we have Police Chief Brown, Police Chief Hall, I should say, is leaving us at the end of the year. What qualities would you like to see in a new police chief?
Well, I want to be very clear about something, because the Dallas City Charter really is very clear about my ability to address personnel issues with current employees. So I want to make sure we're clear so it doesn't get misreported. Your question was about the next police chief, not the current police chief.
That's exactly right.
And that's what I'm going to speak to, because the police chief that we have right now resigned, or stated her intention to resign a couple months ago. And that resignation was accepted by the city manager, but the city manager asked this police chief to stay on till the end of the year, which was not her original intent. So she's still the police chief, but she's resigning, she's moving on. So we are in the process of hiring a new one. And so what I'm looking for in a new one, if I had to boil it down, and I've said this many times publicly, and I'll say it again here, this person needs to take the violent crime problem in Dallas personally and want to be held accountable for it. What I'm desperately looking for in this next person is that they, like me, wake up every single day and think about the residents of Dallas first, not some allegiance to some concept of policing or any agenda, political agenda, nothing else but the residents of Dallas, and do what they believe based on their expertise and their experience, which is why it's so important that this next chief not be an experiment. This next chief needs to be someone who's got experience in a major city lowering violent crime. This person needs to have an actual concrete plan for how to do it. The time for platitudes and the time for theories is over. We are losing way too many lives in a city of this size for that. So I'm looking for a police chief who will not bristle when I say that, but will lock arms with me as the mayor of the city and say, Mayor, I'm with you. It bothers me to no end that these numbers are moving in the wrong direction, and I won't sleep until we get them turned around. And I want them to say and mean it, that the buck stops with them when it comes to crime in this city. I want a partner, a true partner in lowering the crime in the city, because that is the fundamental job of the police department and, frankly, the fundamental job of city government. And we're not doing it right now. And so I want someone who doesn't just mouth the words of accountability, but who lives it and believes in it and is willing to say, this is my job. And if I don't do well at this, then I don't want to be your police chief anymore. I'd want someone else to be in this role. And that's what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for a person whose track record suggests that that's how they feel.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to workforce. Very important for you. It's very important to us. We do a lot of work in that area. I know you've been interrupted by the pandemic and relative to workforce, but where does workforce stand a year and a half into your term? Where are we, and where do you want to go?
Well, it's sort of a big but. The whole the pandemic. The pandemic has been a pretty significant. It's been a game changer, and people throw that term around a lot. It's kind of cliche, but it really has changed the game in terms of it really shifted every mayor in the United States focus to saving lives and saving livelihoods. So I've already talked a long time today about the things we did to try to save lives. But we also had to focus on saving livelihoods. We had to try to save the businesses that we have, Dale, right? I mean, we talked about that a lot, you and I and John, Fred Perpall, Richard Fisher, trying to save the existing small businesses that, were already, struggling to begin with in some cases, were certainly hit the hardest by the pandemic. So that was really where our focus had to shift, was to saving what we had. Now, that doesn't mean we stopped caring about workforce. We stopped working on it. The first thing I did when I became mayor and I formed my committees was I created a committee on workforce. We never had that before. So we have a city council committee on workforce, education, and equity. And those three things are related because workforce really is an equity issue in our city. The issues with workforce are not evenly distributed across our city. There's parts of our city who've just been underserved when it comes to educational opportunities and the training they need to fill the jobs of tomorrow. So that's why workforce, education, and equity are all related in the same community, even though the city is not the leading actor in that space. Similar to when I discussed the pandemic, we're not the leading actor on public health. It's the county, but we care about it and we want to do what we can. We care about workforce. We want to do what we can, even though we're not the leading actor on it. So we formed the committee. We're asking that committee to look first right now at an ordinance to try to create more opportunities for our veterans. That's one of the things that's under their purview. We know we're having an issue with veterans and homelessness, and a lot of the veteran homelessness is also related to workforce issues and retooling and reskilling and getting them ready for the world of work after they leave the service. So that's something that's in the workforce committee's ambit, and they're working on right now. We also started Dallas Works, which I know you're very familiar with. Dallas Works is my baby. I'm very excited about it. I'm disappointed that we weren't able to grow it as big as we wanted in the first year, but we still actually exceeded the size of the Dallas Works. For folks who don't know, by the way, I keep forgetting that it's not just you and I talking, Dale, like we do all the time. Like we got guests today. Dallas Works is the new version of the mayor's, what used to be called the Mayor's Intern Fellows Program, i.e. the Mayor's Summer Jobs Program. What we wanted to do, and I talked to a lot of folks in this town about this before I did it, including Mayor Leppert, the person who created the Mayor Interns Fellows Program, and he blessed this idea. I said, Mayor Leppert, you were brilliant. You created a great concept. A couple hundred very solid students, mostly from DISD. You put them through a summer jobs program that's very high touch. They get to shadow CEOs and C-level executives. I mean, everyone who's ever been through the program loves it. I said, it's wonderful. I said, the problem I have, Mayor, the one problem I have, Mayor Leppert, with it is it's not enough kids. A couple hundred kids just isn't enough. I said, we've got to do more for the B and C and D students, not just the A students. I said, we got to do something for them. I said, those are the ones I'm actually most worried about. I said, but we don't want to blow up the old program and not have something for the elite kids. So let's keep that piece in place, but let's build around it a program that expands the reach to more students and gives them more opportunities. I said, not every student is not going to be able to follow John Olajide around every day for summer. I go, those opportunities are going to be reserved still for those really high achieving students in the old type of program. I go, but what about the type of summer jobs that blockheads like me were able to get when I was a kid, right? Like I had to clean up, mail rooms, and I had to, do that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with good, honest work in the summer that pays some money to put in a kid's pocket and teaches them about the value of hard work, showing up every day to a job on time, dressed in the part, learning how to look people in the eye and say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Those were valuable and they helped me. I mean, I honestly never had one of those fancy summer intern jobs like the ones that in the old program. I always had a job that just pretty much was a job, but it was valuable. So we actually were successful even during the pandemic in doubling the size of the old program. But the goal is, and this won't be a surprise to you, Dale, we got to beat Houston. We got to beat Houston. Houston has a program with 10,000 kids in as their goal. They're trying to get 10,000 kids in their program this upcoming year, or last year they were trying to go for 10,000. I figure we're about half the size of Houston. We should be doing at least 5,000. So that's where we're trying to go with it. But this is workforce development in its purest form at the earliest stages. And that's something that we should be able to continue doing. And we did continue doing even in the pandemic. But we're also partnering with Commit and Todd Williams' effort over there to deal with workforce issues. And we're trying to think about new and creative ways to enhance the Pathways programs that DISD already has. That actually has some law enforcement spillover benefits. I actually got DISD to expand their Pathways program for law enforcement so that we could actually do something that's needed on the public safety side, which is home grow more of our officers. So they've expanded their law enforcement program at their high schools that participate to, I think it's almost doubled what it was before. And those kids, when they go through that program, will be eligible for part-time work at the Dallas Police Department. And when they turn 19 and a half, can go into the police academy and become officers. And these are kids that are coming from Dallas and can work in the communities and neighborhoods that produce them, so they can actually be a protective, loving force, a homegrown police force that loves its community. And that's important. So these are all things that we're doing, even in the pandemic.
I'd just like to remind our audience that the gentleman who calls himself a blockhead graduated with high honors from Harvard, then on to Princeton, and then to Penn Law School. So
there's hope for blockheads, is my point.
And by the way, congratulations on the innovation task force you put together this week with Trey Bowles and Mandy Price. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yes, and we look forward to working with you guys over at the DRC. I know you guys are already doing really great things in that space. I wanted to make a big splash with this one because I do think this is important. I really believe, and Dale, maybe it comes from, you have a working class background like I do. I'm a big, you don't put all your eggs in one basket person. I'm a big diversify person. And I think Dallas has got a great thing going, but I think we got to always be looking at ways to continue to diversify our economy. And we've done a great job. I can't say, individuals like, Dale, myself, and John are the ones who did it, but, we certainly have helped support the diversification in terms of industry, right? Dallas is not a city that, if you ask anyone around the country, is pigeonholed as, oh, well, that's an oil and gas town. I wouldn't bring that type of opportunity to Dallas because you guys don't know anything about that. We're known for finance. We're known for banking. We're known for real estate. We're known for tech. We're known for healthcare. We're known for oil and gas. We're known for all of it. And that's a great situation to be in. That definitely makes your job a lot easier when you're going around the country, Dale, trying to sell this city, to say that, unlike some places, we're really broad in our ability to support businesses here. But one area where I think we could definitely improve is a different type of diversification. And it's diversification in the size of the types of companies and the nature of the companies that we're known for supporting. I think Dallas has a perception of being really all about the big companies, the Fortune 500 companies that are here, the 11 that call Dallas home, the 20 plus that call the region home, that we're really good for supporting the American Airlines and the Exxons of the world, and of course the Dallas-based, the AT&Ts and the Texas Instruments of the world. But I think people's reputation is, our reputation around the country is, but do they really incubate startups very well? If you're going to be a startup, you probably want to be focused on Silicon Valley, Austin, if you're going to go to Texas at all, Atlanta, I've even heard more. I want to compete for that. I want to compete for that segment of the economy. I want us to do when I talk to people, and I talked to a business school professor recently at Columbia, who's actually in charge of their entrepreneurship program, and said, tell me who you think the top venture capitalists are in Dallas. He said, I don't know any venture capitalists in Dallas. This is the person who runs the entrepreneur program at Columbia. Doesn't know of any. So that doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means the word isn't getting out there. Yeah. So I want to figure out how we can make Dallas more closely aligned with that. It's a whole ecosystem around startups. It's different and by startups, I mean something slightly different than just small businesses. There are small businesses that want to stay small businesses. I mean, they're not every mom and pop pizzeria wants to be Pizza Hut when they grow up. Some of them want to stay a local neighborhood deal. They might want 2 stores. That's what they want to do. They want to serve their community in that way. They want to be profitable. They want to make a living. They don't want to work for somebody else. And that's what their goal is. But I'm talking about companies that need to be incubated and are trying to access the equity capital markets through venture capital and want to grow into billion-dollar companies and want to be the next Uber. I want those companies looking at Dallas more seriously. And that's what this effort's about, Dale.
Yeah, wonderful. We appreciate it. And we look forward to working with you on it. Okay, last question before we get to some other parts of the program. You've been in office a year and a half now, you know.
Did you say 10 and a half years? Is that what you said? Oh, year and a half. Okay.
So what would you like to accomplish in the next 2.5 years? What are the big things on your agenda that you'd like to tick off?
Well, you and I have gotten to know each other a lot. We knew each other before I became mayor, but I think we talk a lot more now than we ever have. I probably call you more than you'd like to hear from me. But one of the things you probably have gotten to know about me in those conversations is that I'm a big picture guy over individual issue guy. I like to think about what's the thing that if you solve or unlock, all the other little things fall into place and get solved. You know, I'm looking for those types of solutions always. I think I've come across what the solution is to what problems that we do have, because we do have some problems in city government in Dallas. It's not perfect. It really isn't. That thing, Dale, is accountability. It's more closely linking what happens inside the building at City Hall, the decisions that are made both by the appointed, that's the city manager and his 13,000 employees that report to him, and the electeds, that's the 15 of us, including the mayor. It's more closely linking what they do every single day, the decisions that they make about where the money is spent and how that they collect from all of you, more closely linking those decisions to you as the members of the public so that you can actually make us align our behavior with what you want. And then when we don't, you're able to remove us. Because right now, I'd have to just be honest and say, Dale, it breaks my heart, but it's true. The level of awareness of the general public of what's happening at City Hall and what's the decisions that are being made with annually with $4+ billion of taxpayer money is minimal to none. People have no clue. They have no clue about how the money's, they have no clue that public safety is being underfunded in this city and that there's a direct link between that underfunding and your safety and what's going on in the city right now. They have no idea that we slashed the police overtime budget by 25%. They have no idea some of the decisions that are being made at City Hall. They have no idea how even the decisions are made and the difference between the mayor and the city manager. And that, for example, that the mayor not only will not select the next police chief, but is barred by our charter from even, influencing that process. The residents of the city don't know, for example, speaking of that subject, that I don't even get to have say-so over what that process is. That if the city manager decided that the process they wanted to use was to take all of the finalists and put them on his wall and throw a dart at one of them, and that's how the police chief was going to get selected, that A, I wouldn't even know that's how they decided it, and B, we'd be powerless to stop it. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know that, but they need to, and they need to be informed and aware so that they can speak out to us, the people who are elected, to tell us what they want us to do. And so what I'm going to be doing over the next 2.5 years is being as transparent as humanly possible about every decision of any importance to the taxpayers that I'm making and that I'm advocating for, and also what my colleagues are advocating for and what they're making, so that these decisions aren't made in the dark and so people can be held accountable. Because we will not stop the chronic underfunding of our public infrastructure to the tune of $50 million a year of underinvestment unless you all speak out. We will not lower your tax rate from literally the highest tax rate of any major city in Texas, unless you are aware that you have the highest tax rate of any major city in Texas, and you want us to do something about it. We're playing around the edges on stuff. We're speaking out of both sides of our mouths as a council in many cases, saying we support public safety, but not funding the agreed to mark to market on their salaries. How does that help us recruit someone to the Dallas Police Department when we won't even honor our obligations to the officers that we made just a year ago, to go from voting 15-0 in favor of a public safety budget to a split vote on a budget that won't pay for them to have new cars that they need? If the public is aware of these things, I have every confidence. Because I grew up here, Dale. I'm not from Detroit. I'm from the other D. I'm from Dallas. The people will get that decision right every single time. They just have to know what's going on, and that's what we're going to be doing over the next 2.5 years.
Yeah, no question. We need more citizen engagement and more voter engagement.
Yes.
In order for folks to understand things a little bit. Well, Mayor, thank you. Great conversation. Enjoyed it. I'll be back to you in just a minute, but in the meantime, I'm going to turn things over to Oric Walker, the Vice President of Public Affairs at Atmos Energy. He's going to kick off the question and answer period for our audience. Oric?
Hey, thank you, Dale. I appreciate that. What a terrific conversation today. On behalf of Atmos Energy and the Dallas Regional Chamber, thank you, Mayor Johnson. We certainly appreciate your time thus far. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Oric Walker, Vice President of Public Affairs for Atmos Energy. Atmos Energy is committed to supporting business-friendly policies that allow our regional companies to thrive. We are pleased to partner with the DRC to foster timely discussions like today's that impact businesses and our quality of life in the Dallas region. Throughout our Fueling Safe and Thriving Communities program at Atmos Energy, we've pledged $2 million to support local food programs in the 1,400 communities that we serve so that hungry children get the food that they need before, during, and after the school day, and on weekends and even holidays, during this season. We've also pledged another $1 million to help customers and to assist them in paying their natural gas utility bills so they can stay warm in the winter. If you're like me, today is one of those days that you probably cycled on your central heating unit in the home or wherever you're working from so that you can stay warm. And so that's important to us as a utility company. Atmos Energy is rooted in the belief that safety is at the center of everything that we do. And we continue to provide, essential services to ensure the safety and functionality of our critical infrastructure. We greatly appreciate the support of the DRC in seeking to implement policies that align with our vision to be the safest natural gas service provider. Mayor Johnson, we certainly are grateful for your leadership, especially during this unprecedented time. I'd like to use this opportunity to kick off the question and answer portion of the discussion. Mr. Mayor, you recently announced the creation of a task force on innovation and entrepreneurship with the goal of turning Dallas into a top city for startup businesses. How can private companies best partner with the city to support this startup culture in Dallas?
I appreciate that question, and I definitely appreciate you, Oric, and Atmos, and all that you guys do for our community as well, and supporting events like this. Hopefully, this has been somewhat informative for folks, and if it's been repetitive or boring for folks who've heard me talk about this, for the past year in private conversations, I apologize. But the task force specifically is being chaired by Trey Bowles with the Dallas Entrepreneurship Center, and Mandy Price, who's a local entrepreneur herself, who started a company called Canaries, which is assisting businesses who need help with diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're both tremendously successful, qualified, smart people who love Dallas. And so I've asked them to work with me on building a task force, which does not exist yet in terms of the members. We've not decided who's going to be on this, but we want representation from a broad section of our business community that can help us understand at City Hall what role, if any, and I believe there probably will be a role, what role, if any, the city can play in building an ecosystem that supports startups. And so we don't know what we don't know actually at the city. And I think that's important for people to also understand about the way I approach solving problems. I think I've been successful to a degree in public service up to this point by acknowledging that up front. When I don't have the expertise, I go and try to find the person or persons who do and turn to them. We at the city are good at a few things, really good, really good at a few things. I mean, we're really good at animal services, for example. We're really good at our parks and rec. We're really good at running a water utility. But there are certain things that we aren't experts in. And when it comes to some of these economic development issues and business issues, I think the private sector is in many ways better situated to help us in terms of advising us on what we can be doing. And so I'm turning to the private sector and I'm turning to my two co-chairs to help us populate a task force that by April 30th is going to make a set of recommendations to me and to the chair of the city's Economic Development Committee, Tanel Atkins, for what we need to do. We don't have any preconceived notions about what that's going to be. The only thing I've said so far on the record, and I stand by this, is that I hope that they will prioritize and put on their list looking at this problem from an equity standpoint and making sure that communities of color and low-income communities that have been left behind in our city just habitually over the years are not left behind in this initiative. We want to make sure that we are not, for any reason, intentional or completely benign neglect, leaving out entrepreneurs of color who are having trouble navigating the venture capital world or navigating whatever the challenges are that entrepreneurs face. So I've told them I want them to make sure that that is part of the conversation. But other than that, they're being given free rein to put this together. And like my task force on safe communities, which I think did an amazing job on the violent crime issue of coming back with 4 concrete recommendations to me that I then was able to get a combination of private sector funding and city funds through our budget to pay for. All 4 of those recommendations are being funded in this current budget to some degree and being implemented as we speak. I'm hoping the same thing will happen with this task force. They will come forward with some concrete recommendations that are data supported that I can then, if necessary, go to the city council and say, we need to put this in our upcoming budget, or to the private sector and say, this is something I need our private companies, the members of the Dallas Regional Chamber, et cetera, to get behind. So that's the game plan.
Absolutely. Well, Mayor Johnson, thank you. I will now turn it back over to our moderator, Dale Petrosky.
Okay, thank you, Warwick, and thanks for all you and Atmos do in our community. You guys are big players. So, okay, Mayor, let's take some questions from the audience. This is from Nicole Ketchum. She says, what's the most impactful way we as citizens can support the Dallas community?
I think it goes back to that accountability issue. I really need more people paying attention to what's happening at City Hall. So I would start with familiarizing yourself with our form of government and who your representative is on the council. Introduce yourself to that member. We all have email. We all read those emails. At least I know I do, and I get dozens and dozens a day. Reach out to your council member, introduce yourself, and let them know that, hey, I'm a resident of the city. I care about the city, and I just want you to know that I'm paying attention. I'm an informed resident, and I want to be helpful in any way I can. But I also expect you to, keep us informed as a resident of what you're doing, and then that will get you on the radar screen of the council member. And from that point on, I think a relationship can form where you may be asked to serve on boards or commissions. I've made dozens of appointments to boards and commissions of residents. Those boards and commissions are designed for residents of our city. Almost every one of them is restricted to people who live in the city of Dallas, in fact, to be able to participate directly in city government. But also, I think, people have jobs. I understand people aren't going to sit around and watch council meetings all day. We meet every Wednesday. Committees meet different days of the week. But reading the newspaper and not, going right over the metro section, but reading about what's going on and staying informed about, what city government what we just voted on, things like the budget are especially important. And then, of course, following where things like crime are headed, stories related to investments in our city and in the form of economic development projects and things, corporate relocations, who's coming, where they're going. Those are all things that sort of help you understand where the most help is needed. And this is something that Dale's heard me talk about a lot, but that's important to me. And that is this. I love all of our neighbors, Dale. I do. I love the mayor of Fort Worth dearly. She's recovering from COVID now. It's a good friend, Betsy Price. I love all of our Metroplex area mayors. I do. But I want to beat them, Dale, when it comes to corporate relocations, and I want to beat them when it comes to economic development. So I want to see more deals done in the city. I want more office parks going up in the southern part of our city. I want more deals of all sorts. I want more affordable housing deals. I want more market rate deals. I want more office buildings. I want more retail. I want more all of it happening in Dallas, not because it's a vanity project and I get to brag about it at mayoral conferences when we start having those again and we, get together as mayors. Although I do brag about Dallas quite a bit at those, there's a real reason for it. And it's because it will help us if we increase our tax base. It becomes harder and harder for the city council to not lower your taxes, or they have less of a justification for not lowering your taxes. If we can generate the same amount of tax revenue or even more with a lower tax rate because we have more valuable property in the city, then that means your tax bill can start to fall. But before that can happen, we really do need to enhance the tax base. So I think those are all things that I would recommend that someone who wants to help their city out do. Get involved in the Board of Commission, introduce yourself to your council person, and follow the news, not just the national stuff that everybody follows, but this local stuff. It's critically important.
I love that point because I find fewer and fewer people reading the news now. And I read the Dallas Morning News for 1 hour every morning. And I read the paper. I don't read it on my tablet. I actually read the paper. I want to get every word. And it really helps me to understand what's going on in this town. And I think more and more people are just bypassing that and getting the news from other places. And I think that really is the disillusion in a lot of ways of a community. And we need people to be reading the Dallas Morning News.
Couldn't agree more.
So, okay, next question. This is from the news, as a matter of fact. It's from WBAP. You talked a lot about the new police chief. Do you know what steps have been taken in a hiring process of a new police chief, or where the process currently stands?
Not really. To be perfectly honest, not really. The city manager in Dallas completely owns this process. And my role in this is like any other council member. I get to voice my opinion to the city manager, which I have pretty loudly. The things you heard me say earlier about what I'm looking for in the next chief, the city manager has heard. I've also given input on the process. I said, I think this process needs to be handled primarily through the Public Safety Committee of the City Council. I think there's to be ample opportunity for the public to weigh in and, to come like we do it. Like I used to when I was in Austin, have as long a hearing as we need for everybody in the public who wants to come and express themselves on the topic to be able to come and express themselves. It doesn't appear that we're going to be doing it that way. I don't think it doesn't look like we're going through the Public Safety Committee. A survey was generated that I've been pushing hard that the city manager generated. I don't think the survey gets at some of the things I'd like to see it get at, but it's a start. It has an open-ended question in it, question 11, I believe it is, that you can answer any way you want. I encourage people to fill it out. But I have some concerns about the process, but it's just not it's literally not within my control to guide that process. the requirements, the job description, the city manager comes up with the job description of the police, so you ask me, what am I looking for? Just to be perfectly honest with you, it's just what I'm looking for. The city manager is saying in the job description what he's looking for. My understanding, and I'm looking into this, is that the requirements have changed from the last search in terms of what they're looking for this time. I'm going to look and see if the requirements became less stringent. I have concerns if they did, if we're looking for someone, in my opinion, that can help us out of this violent crime situation we're in and lead this department where it needs to go. I don't think we should be looking for someone with less experience than we had the last time, or someone with less education than we had last time. But these are all things that I have to do in a very careful way to avoid violating the charter and violating the spirit of our form of government, for better or for worse. But, the process at some point is going to wrap up and move to the phase where the city manager is selecting from a group of finalists. I think he's forming another committee of residents or interested persons like he did last time to get some specific people's input, which I don't think is harmful in any way. I think it's a good thing, but it's not the same as an open hearing, a legislative style hearing where anybody who has the time and the inclination can sign up and say, this is how crime affects me every day. I hear the gunshots every day. I'm concerned about the street racing, and I want a chief that does A, B, or C, or thinks A, B, or C. There's no substitute for that. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want it, but I know I want it, and we'll see if we get it, but I don't know.
Okay, all right, great. This is from Sean Parker. She asks, what's the city doing to address broadband infrastructure, the needs to serve all of our citizens?
It's a great question, and I know that it's an issue that's on our radar screen at City Hall, and it's also on the minds of folks in Austin. My understanding is that this is actually going to be an issue that is going to be looked at in some earnest in Austin this session. So I'm the chair of our city council's legislative affairs committee that's responsible for drafting our legislative agenda. And I insisted, and we were able to include in that legislative agenda, and I'm very happy that we did, a line about supporting the expansion of broadband. And so we're going to be looking to Austin to help us with that effort. And so this kind of falls, Dale, into the category, again, of things that are just really important, that's not necessarily in the traditional definition of what a city does, but that we can't not care about. Similar to a pandemic and similar to workforce, we know that it's a big deal. And so DISD is attacking the problem. We're going to do our part, and we're going to advocate in Austin for more resources to throw at this. I think it's a real advantage for Dallas to have the largest telecommunications company in the world, AT&T, headquartered here, because that means we have the ear in Dallas of a major player and how that's all going to play out. And I think President Obama said yesterday in an interview, and I agree with the man 100% on this issue for sure. And he says, you've got to understand that when you're talking about making policy, you have to be able and willing to build coalitions with people who don't exactly 100% see the world the way you do. I mean, it's got to be policymaking by addition and not by subtraction in this country, because it's a diverse country. AT&T and the telecommunications players are major stakeholders in what happens here. And if your posture from before you even start is they're the bad guys and they've been failing us up to now, and we're going to ram this down their throats or something, is not going to be successful, in my opinion. You're going to have to start talking to them early and working with them early and trying to come to something that works. And so I'm hoping the legislature hashes something out. I know, like I said, at the city and at the school district level, we're doing what we can. We're trying to provide hotspots through our libraries to people and try to give people enhanced access to the internet. But we need something major. We need a big ticket broadband package to come out of Austin that has buy-in from the key stakeholders so that can happen.
All right, wonderful. This is from Brittany Duhan. What's being done to combat the increase in the homeless population in downtown Dallas?
Well, I I have to say, homelessness is an issue that has plagued our city for a long, long time. And as far back as I can remember paying attention to city politics, we've been asking ourselves, what is the solution to dealing with the homeless population downtown and period throughout our city? I remember going back to the Lauren Miller mayoralty. This was an issue, and the appointing of homeless czars, and then the MDHA came along. I actually served on the board of the MDHA, and when Mike Rollins was the chair of the MDHA before he became mayor. And so we've been working on this for a long time. But you know what? The results have not been what anybody who's been in this chair that I'm in now would like for them to be. And I think it's accurate to say that I'm not the first mayor, and I think every mayor before me has cared deeply about this issue. It's a complex issue, but it's an issue that we know a little bit more about with every passing year. One of the things that we definitely know about homelessness that I'm not sure people were aware of, or maybe they were aware of it but didn't want to talk about it, that I'm ready to lean in on because I believe it's part of the solution, is this. About 2/3 of our homeless population in this city is African American. Dallas is not 2/3 African American. There's something going on with this homelessness issue that is causing a disproportionate impact to be felt by the African American community, and particularly Black males. I mean, they make up a really large percentage of that 2/3. But at the end of the day, what I believe we need to do is to take a real hard look at, and I will also tell you, Dallas is not, this is not true in every city in the United States. It's not like this is just the way homelessness works. This is a uniquely Dallas phenomenon that we've got to get to the bottom of, because if we get to the bottom of that, remember I talked earlier about, if you were on the call, I like to find the thing that unlocks the other things. If we figure out why African Americans are homeless to the tune of 2/3 of our homeless population, when we make up, less than a quarter of that in terms of our population, I think we're on to solving the problem. So that's something I think we're going to need to turn our focus to. And I think in this environment where we're talking so much, and thankfully so, that we're talking so much about racial justice and equity issues, it doesn't just apply to police brutality. Racial equity doesn't just apply. And I'm so thankful. I forgot to mention, John brought up the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts that the chamber's making. So important that we address, racial equity issues in business and in commerce and, economically. But this is also a racial equity issue. There's something wrong when 2/3 of the people on our streets in Dallas are African American. And we shouldn't be afraid to say that and then to do whatever it takes to address it. So I'm going to be leaning in very heavily on our city council and this committee that I have formed, which is new. It's the Committee on Housing and Homelessness Solutions. We had never had a committee at the city council that elevated homelessness to the level of a standing committee until I became the mayor. We're going to dig in deep on this issue. I'm going to encourage all the funders in the city who I met with 2 weeks ago on this very topic. And I told them the same thing I'm telling you. We are going to have to interject a racial equity lens into this discussion on homelessness, because it's going to be part of the key to unlocking it. It really will. That's my belief.
Yeah. Mayor, first of all, thank you for the time you've given us today. Your schedule is very tight, but you gave us a lot of time today. Thanks for your candor in answering the questions. It's obvious that you know a lot about a lot of things, and you're very much understand the way the pieces fit together and the way you want to see things go. Can't thank you enough. It's been just a pleasure getting to spend this time with you.
Hey, happy holidays to all of you, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn things over now to Zach Sherman from our gold sponsor company, Lockheed Martin, for closing remarks. Zach?
Thank you so much, Dale. Hello, and thank you so much. I'm Zach Sherman, Director of Government Affairs at Lockheed Martin Missiles Fire Control. We are so proud to be the gold sponsor for today's event, and proud to partner on so many events that bring key leaders such as the mayor here today to understand the needs of the business community, especially during these uncertain times and environment we are facing that was discussed earlier. Thank you so much, Mayor Johnson, DRC, distinguished guests, and industry colleagues. With more than 80 years in Texas, Lockheed Martin has been a pioneer in the field of versatile, high-performance security technology, and also an important contributor to the nation's outer space efforts. Today, Lockheed Martin Texas operations supports approximately 22,000 jobs at 25 sites throughout the state and 34,000 retirees. And just thus far through the pandemic, throughout this year, we have advanced over $650 million to 660 suppliers, while also donating approximately 13,000 units of PPE, personal protective equipment, to those that need it the most, our frontline workers. In addition, in 2020, our regional employee base has contributed more than $1.9 million to North Texas community and charitable organizations, while volunteering 95,000 hours to serve the communities in which we live. In addition, we've donated more than $1.6 million to various STEM and military veteran organizations. And sir, we are so very grateful for the work you are doing for the veterans and share the same mission that you've contributed to Veterans Affairs. Mayor, you recently announced the plans for the first Veterans Affairs Commission in the city of Dallas, which will help the city council assess those veterans' needs and serve as a resource for those veterans who seek assistance navigating the city's services. So thank you all again to our sponsors today for making this event possible. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas, our presenting sponsor. Gold sponsors, Atmos Energy Corporation and Lockheed Martin. Silver sponsors, DFW International Airport, Encore, Southwest Airlines, and Toyota Motor North America. And of course, all our virtual corporate table sponsors. On behalf of the DRC, thank you so much for your continued support to make important like this happen and possible.